All right, welcome everybody to another live stream presented by Paradime. In these live streams, this is live stream number 8. We have been going over DinoAI, which is our AI agent inside of our code IDE. And each week we're going over our latest features and our latest updates. And this week, Fabio is going to show us a few more that we're all really excited about. So with no further ado, Fabio, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Parker. Yes, super excited about what we're launching in this webinar today. One of the problem or challenges we saw with prompt in general is that we often tend to repeat ourselves, writing the same thing on and on and on within the chat input. What we're solving now for users and teams is to actually have a much more collaborative experience around how to work with prompt, how to design the prompt, and how to use them as part of their development experience. So our chat panel got a new addition, a few actually, the first one being the prompt button. What this allows to do is effectively to fetch and reuse a bunch of prompts that have been designed. We provide out of the box a set of existing ones that we see here. And what this allows us to do is effectively to work with DinoAI without having to write our prompts on and on and on. Let's take an example, updating a DB sources file. That's something that happens quite commonly. We want to make sure that we can bring some sort of standardization in the way how we do this. So we have now a prompt available where automatically we'll be going and fetching the content of the current open file. We'll show later on how that actually works with variable. And it's as simple as just selecting which prompt we want. Right now it's selected f1 sources.yaml, which means the result when I press the send button. What we're going to be doing now is just send this prompt to the agent. We're adding the additional context that is required for updating our YAML file. And now the DinoAI agent will just go ahead and do its magic. Again, it's fetching our data from the database. It's then looking at the YAML files to see what needs to be updated. If I did want a table that required changes, and now it's going ahead and fetching additional information from the table so that the schema.yaml can be updated. When we think about how can we make sure that teams works in a very standardized ways and fashion, how we can make sure that now teams can collaborate about sharing and reusing the best prompts available to them, and how we can make sure that we don't have to type the same thing on and on and on. Now prompts are available out of the box in Paradime there. So we'll wait now to complete the process of updating these sources, and then we'll look at a few other examples as well. But I'm super excited about this. I think with AI, one of the core behavior we want to introduce for users is how can they write by the prompt and how they can reuse them and how they can share them in a collaborative way with their team. The other exciting things about this that we'll see in a second is around how can we use variables within the prompt. So that's something that we just saw just now in terms of being able to understand which file I had open. And this is actually something pretty powerful and exciting for us. So we're planning to add more and more variables for the prompts as part of DinoAI. The other thing that as this gets generated, here we go. So again, DinoAI was powerful enough to go and identify exactly in which location. You fetch all the columns name, you fetch all the data types, and now I can simply go ahead and click on accept, and this file has been updated for me. So let's take a look a little bit more on the prompts and how prompts works. If I click on my dinoprompt file, so for context, dinoprompts is similar to what we have in dinoRole. So it's a file that sits in your repository. And this, I'll just collapse this for a sec for visibility. And this dinoprompts file is basically how you can build your library of reusable prompts. So if you scroll down, we'll see those are the ones that are loaded by default when using DinoAI. You can change them, you can modify them, of course. So I have one that generates full description, updated sources.yaml, generate them, generate model for sources, refactor DBT models, document and test DBT model. So the good thing is that if we were to write the same prompt on and on, most likely we will end up writing slightly different version of the same prompt. Like this, we can actually create a library, we can reuse it. And some of you are probably familiar with gingers and curly brackets. So what we implemented for this is the ability to use variable within the prompt. This means that when we are actually using the prompt, we can infer or fetch additional context based on the variable provided. So for example, here we have editor.currentFilePath, which means that we add to the prompt when we are sending the prompt to the agent, the ability to fetch the file that is currently open, which is what we saw just now. But also we have other things like git diff with origin and default branch, which you're going to look in a few minutes on how to create pull requests. Let's go ahead and take another example now. Classic one is, let's say I'm going to create and start a new chat. I go on prompts and I want to document and test my DBT model. So it's a pretty long prompt, but it's actually pretty powerful because it's defined a set of rules. Then we want to make sure that the agent is going to follow when generating the description. Again, because this prompt uses the variable of current file path, which means that it's the file that is currently open in my editor, we automatically attach the context from that file itself. So if I go ahead and press send, now, again, we are sending the context to the agent with our request, and it's going to go ahead and automatically understand to read our file and ultimately generate the YAML files that we want with the descriptions and the tests provided. We are seeing already with existing users how this speed up how people interact with our agent, but more importantly, how they can get a consistent and repeatable experience when generating YAML files, documentation, whether it's test or simply generating model and creating aliases and so on. That's something that, yeah, super excited about what's coming. I'm really looking forward also for what users are coming up in terms of prompts as well. While this is completing, the next thing I want to show now is about how we can actually edit this, so what the editing process looks like for generating this prompt. So I'll just go ahead and open this file now. Ultimately, this is YAML, which means that as soon as we add a YAML formatted prompt, this will be made available for us in the menu as well. Now I have my newly generated YAML files. It follows our Dino rules in terms of how we want this to be configured. And now I can go ahead and click on accept. And now the new file is created there. Now, let's say I want to update my prompt with something new. I have one that I've pre-prepared already. So I'll just gonna maybe collapse this for a sec. I'm on a bit of a small screen today. It's as simple as just providing a name and then the prompt with the pipe to make sure that we maintain spaces. So what I have here is a prompt to generate a Mermaid diagram. And the prompt says, help me create a Mermaid diagram for this model. And I pass the variable of the current file with the following considerations. So follow best practice to make sure that you use a clear and concise node labels, maintain consistent styling, include relationship description. If it's about DBT lineage, make sure that you show the relationship that are using ref and source dependencies and so on, and make sure that you save this as an MMD file. What this means in practice, if I go now and I open my model again, I can click on new chat and I go and select my prompt. And you see now I have the new prompt available in my list. So I can just click on this one. And now we load it in your chat panel and we can press send. And we are effectively now just passing the prompt with the context that we want within the agent so we can create this file. So it's going ahead now and create this Mermaid file. So Paradime support Mermaid out of the box within our editor, meaning that you can actually generate it with DinoAI, but you can also render them. That can be actually quite useful when handling complex models, and we want to make sure that we have some sort of like artifacts available for the users. So again, if I can go ahead and click on accept, and now I click on my preview button. It's a bit small now, but let's see if we can zoom in. I can see now we have our Mermaid diagrams with all the relationship build and some additional visibility on how this model has been built for us. Okay. Last thing we want to do, of course, is let's say we're going to go ahead and write our commits so we can wrap this up on this front there. When we start building AI features in Paradime, one of the things we built was generating commits using AI. But now with DinoAI, we can also generate pull requests, which I'm also very excited about it. So if I go ahead and click on next, we have one of our prompts already built in, which is the general pull request description. And using some of the variable we have, we automatically do the diffing between my current branch and the full branch in my repository, so that if I go and you see summary of changes, motivation of the changes, how to test changes, I can go ahead and click on send here. And now DinoAI will basically look at the diff, generate a pull request description for us that we can take it away and paste it inside our pull request when we go ahead and open it. So again, a lot of automation, a lot of making sure that we provide all the context required for the agent in a way, but also for user when we are creating pull request, and provide all the information required to get this pull request approved super quickly. That's all from the Dino prompt. I'm going to start a new chat now. I want to show you something else. Something we built at Paradime, we wanted to make sure that we could provide our user with a way to activate credit saver mode. So how can we help users to spend less credit, how to be more efficient with prompting? We cannot give for granted that users will have all the best practices and all things around how to be more efficient writing the best prompt. And we know that LLMs have max context windows. So we built what we called a credit saver mode within Paradime. And what this allows us to do is that the system will effectively learn from what we're using and automatically enter credit saving mode so that the user can actually spend less credit within Paradime. As a result, they can generate a lot more code and use a lot more of the AI functionality within DinoAI. How do we do this? Let's take an example. I'm going to write a message here which says, can you please document all my models in the staging folder? And I'm going to add as context my directory path. And I'm going to type staging here. Okay, and press send. So what we'll do, we will start creating documentation for each of those files. And as this happens, it will understand that because it's moving to a new task, it will automatically go ahead and summarize effectively what has been done so far. So the context that is available to the current chat or current thread will not be lost, but we will be actually working on reducing the amounts of credit that are used in this conversation so that users can stay on the flow and generate more code, more documentation, more YAML without overspending of credit. So that's something actually very exciting for us. We're super excited to see this now being released in Paradime. I think a lot of users, they're kind of like starting their AI journey, and there's a lot of domain knowledge around how to be more effective around context management and credit management and how to increase relevancy. So right now, users, they actually don't have to think about that anymore. They can just simply do the work, and the agent will take care of do the summarization for them. So now, basically, what happened is because the agent is starting to document new models, I don't need the full context from the previous SQL file. So it's decided to go and summarize them. So it's still part of the memory and the context available, but not in the full length. Particularly somebody has large SQL files, which can happen quite commonly. What will happen is we'll go and switch from one task to another one. And as a result, our thread will become extremely long and more credit will be used to keep that context available within the agent, where often you don't need to. So here, after documenting a few of this DBT model, I'll give an example here. So after documenting these two DBT models, we actually don't need them anymore. And the agent was able to recognize that and enter credit saving mode. So we keep some knowledge of what has happened so far, but not the full list of tokens that have been used. I think this is extremely powerful for users, mainly around how users don't have to think about this anymore, which is actually what makes this feature special. You can just go ahead and do your work, and DinoAI will take care of being efficient, whatever is needed to, and choose not to whenever you need a lot of context there. Cool. Awesome. This is from credit saver mode. It just does a job pretty much, which is saving your credits. I use it, which is pretty cool. The last thing now, I'm going to start a new chat here. And I want to show you the last feature we're going to be talking through this live stream, which is voice to text. I think we started from you have to type every single time what you have to do within the chat input to then, hey, you can actually build dinoprompts so you can one-click enter things within the chat input, but we took this even further. So now you can actually talk with the DinoAI panel. There's definitely use cases where you maybe want to kind of like riff around different ideas or things that you don't want to necessarily type one per one within there. So let's take as an example a use case here and how does it work. So it's as simple as I can start on click on record audio, and now I'm going to start talking. Hey, I want to write some DBT unit tests. Can you tell me a little bit more of how they work and how they can be used in my DBT project? So I could just basically talk with the agent, tell them what I want to do. The agent was able to then just listen to all my things and then start doing its own search and its own information and generating all at once. So in this case, I'm asking some more information, but effectively, it could be about generating code or describing or documenting. Like I found this to be quite exciting as a use case where, let's say we build some SQL and we have some complex logic, we can actually talk to the agent and say, hey, this is why I have this case statement, and this is the kind of use cases I'm tracking, so that the agent can actually follow that through and generate the documentation and that domain knowledge I have as I've been generating the SQL invite. I'm super curious to see how people will actually find a balance between typing prompts, using voice to text there. but we're seeing this as an additional way of how now user can interact and have this sort of AI agentic experience in Paradime tightly coupled to their day-to-day usage, whether that is generating documentation, generating pull description, using repeatable prompts, or just simply talk to the agent to generate all the artifacts in one shot. So yeah, super excited also for those features and what's coming next.
Great. Well, that concludes today's session. We will have another one next week for you, and the week after that, and the week after that. So thank you for tuning in, and we will see you soon. Thank you, Fabio.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.